Welcome to On Repeat, the weekly podcast giving you an insight into the minds of musicians with me, Ellie Rashid.
And me, Hattie Winter.
In this week's episode of On Repeat, we speak to Intalekt, aka Josh, who is possibly one of the busiest people we know.
Definitely. So, if I can say this all in one breath, he is one half of He is one half of production duo Billy Dukes, a radio host on Reprezent Radio, the founder of School of Bop, an initiative aimed at getting young, curious creatives into the world of music production, and, of course, an artist and producer in his own right.
So Josh's music is truly genre bending, and we'll be talking loads about genre during this podcast. His heavy instrumentation and sampling, plus it's inspired by the likes of hip hop, soul, gospel and rock, which all culminate to make his kind of trippy sounds. His self-produced debut EP is called It Is What It Is. IIWII.
The release showed Josh celebrate UK talents such as Jacob Banks, Koji Radical, Jay Prince and Ella Frank, and similarly was celebrated by UK radio royalty Trevor Nelson, Mr. Jam and DJ Target. And with such a multifaceted career, Josh's passions, I'd say, can really boil down to two things: connections and communities. In lockdown, he made the crowdsourced release Choppy Chops, which encouraged people to send in samples for him to create music from. And as the proud father of School of Bop, Josh gladly and eagerly, and also, this isn't like a normal thing, but he passes on his experience and knowledge to teens and young adults and brings them together with his artist friends to help people make industry connections, which is a really, really important role to play, and more people should do it. So yeah, so much.
This guy does so much. So much. Incredible. It was such a pleasure to get to speak to him, and I really hope that if you're listening, you enjoy it as much as we did, because honestly, learnt loads. So in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about genre, like I said, picking it apart, talking about his community work with young people and getting through creative blocks or so-called bad ideas. And, particularly over lockdown when some people are thinking, I'm not feeling very creative, can't do very much. Yeah, we'll be discussing how that feels.
Also, if you're liking the music in the background, it's called Peace, and it was on Intalekt's release The Adventures of Master Splinter in 2019, and we will link to it in the show notes. Don't forget, we've also made a Facebook page now, which you can find at On Repeat the Podcast. Easy enough to find, easy enough to remember. So yeah, sit back, keep it on repeat with Intalekt, and enjoy. We hope you love this interview as much as we did.
I go by the artist name of Intalekt. I'm a producer, a DJ, a session musician, and a radio presenter, and also the co-founder of School of Bop, which is a production workshop that allows young people, young kids, to get their creative juices flowing, learn how to produce, create music. That's kind of like over 3 days. And on the third day, we do a showcase. I get some of my artist friends to come down, and we have a little panel. We listen to the instrumentals that the people have made, and they get their network on. It's a really, really, really beautiful thing in collaboration with Native Instruments. A shout out to Native Instruments. The last ones we did were with Native Instruments and Nike's community space, 1948 London, which was really cool. So
that is a very impressive CV.
Thanks.
I would say.
Did you learn how to produce and things through workshops, or did you just learn yourself, and was it trial and error?
A long time ago, actually, I learned how to DJ through like a workshop, but it was kind of like, it was at a youth club, to be fair. It was at a youth club, yeah. But as far as production, that was through college. Yeah, production through college. I just learned from early, and my parents, thank God for my parents, they just knew that I wasn't the most academic person, so they were like, all right, cool. A-levels, I was just like, guys, please just let me do music production. And I think that's what's allowed me to kind of go super duper hard for music as well, because like they've allowed me to just kind of go my own path and like just create and be able to make music. Because when you get the green light, especially coming from where I'm coming from, like from an African household, if your parents give you the green light for something like the arts, you have to give it 100%. You have to. No, honestly. So yeah,
I feel you on that one. I'm from a Pakistani household, and if you want to do the arts, it's like, you better do it well.
Right.
If you're gonna do it.
Right. Trust me, you have to stand out.
Yeah.
I'm from a Caribbean background, so it's pretty similar.
Right. So we have the share. Okay, so it's all sharing the same. Okay, cool.
Where do you find your inspirations from when you make music?
The main inspiration, I think the live elements that I put in my music definitely comes from my background in, I guess, my church background. Learned keys and drums. So also being a pastor's son as well, I think that was the main thing. So like my rock stars back in the day when I was younger were just like gospel musicians, like, so like,
oh wow,
Ron Canoli, Fred Hammond, Alvin Slaughter. So those are the people I listened to like growing up. And then just kind of having that live element, because all those songs were never like, they were never recorded like gospel albums. If you listen to them, most of them aren't in studio. They're always like at like a show or like a church service or like an arena or whatever, and they've recorded that. So when I listened to music, I was always digesting it as like a live piece or like a live arrangement. And then growing up, my nan gave me my first iPod. Then I just went crazy. I just like found every bit of music I could grab hold of. I was just like holding on to it and like learning that, and just then I went through a gangster rap phase.
Yeah.
And then college came. Then I kind of learned about more rock, more metal, and then after that I kind of, in that time I found Jay Dilla, and I think that's when everything kind of fell into place. I was like, oh, okay. And all those elements all together then made this guy.
Yeah, you can really hear that, all these influences like weaving together. I don't think I knew that about the kind of church and gospel background.
No, we haven't spoken about it. Yeah. So that's where it all starts, really.
I love that so much, because that's so beautiful, and it's kind of like a really hard thing to kind of capture, this like live element kind of sound to it.
Yeah, and also it's like it kind of it makes you want to then be more precise in what you're doing, because they practice that stuff and then they go do it live. Do you know what I mean? So during their practice sessions, they're making it as tight as they can. So that's kind of giving me that, discipline to make sure whenever I'm doing these things, I just want to make sure they're as clean as they possibly can be, but also kind of give that loose kind of live element to them. So in regards to like, I don't know, certain instruments, not putting them on beat, so it kind of just gives it a little bit more of a real feel, because your drummer's never going to be, unless your drummer's a robot, then okay, cool, it's going to be precisely on. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
But you use live played instruments when you're recording ever, or is it just sounds? So
it depends on the songs sometimes. So sometimes I'll I'll play myself, so I'll play keys, or depending on the session, I might go in the kit, play like a drum groove, or I'll get instrumentalists to come in, play some bass, guitars, live brass. Brass is always, I love brass so much. Yeah. So if you hear any of my music that's got brass in it, it is recorded here in my little old room. And so sometimes it depends on the song if it needs it, but some songs I can just I'll play just through MIDI, but kind of give it that live feel. Do you know what I mean?
I really like what you said about keeping the live feel, but also making it really crisp and clean. And I was thinking about all the influences you were saying. So I think we've had this conversation before as well about genre and how to label things. Like, what would you label your music? Because I've seen it labeled as quite a couple of things.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say it was?
I don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy. I don't I don't label my music.
Yes.
I can't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we were speaking to someone last week who was quite into labeling. We had this little debate about it, and like I'm of the opinion that things shouldn't be labeled necessarily. It's practical, isn't it? But
yeah.
How do you feel about it then?
No, I agree. I feel like depending, and with labels as well, and it depends on your knowledge of that label that you're now putting on it as well, because certain labels in you like, okay, cool, in this, let's say this is hip hop, your knowledge of hip hop might be a bit limited to somebody else that's kind of like invested in hip hop, and then they know the subgenres of hip hop. So for example, if I was to say, oh, I make hip hop music, that could mean so many different things to so many different people, and because everyone has their own spec of hip hop. So for example, that means he makes like, some people might be, okay, he makes gangster rap music, or some people might be like, okay, cool, he makes lo-fi, or some person might be like, yeah. So it depends. But yeah, I think like labels, it helps us understand, but we pigeonhole as well in our understanding, which I feel can be dangerous.
I totally agree. And I think
I totally agree as well.
I wonder if when you're working with young people, do you find I find that it's almost really good to have a sort of genreless approach, because you say like people pigeonhole and they can stereotype, and actually people are just growing up with stereotypes which can put them off certain genres, and it stops that kind of beauty of just being able to create music from all different influences that we inevitably have, right? But I was thinking as well, like, you know how Spotify, we were talking about this with about DJing being an extension of jazz and everything, and Spotify having playlists like shower music, lost in the woods, coffee break, things like this. And obviously it's subjective, but if you could have, so if we're going to say your music's genreless, what kind of, like, based around that kind of thing, what would your playlist be called? Where might it be played? What might you be eating?
That's a good question. That's a wicked question. What I've noticed is that when people listen to my music, it's either they're on a journey, they're going somewhere, or they're either physically going somewhere, or they're working on something and they've used my music to then get themselves to their destination kind of thing. So whether it be finishing a project, that's the destination. So maybe not music to live to, maybe something to do with traveling, but not just, I don't know.
Journey music's a thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Journey music is a thing.
Journey music's a thing.
Yeah, definitely. There are some people that I like can't listen to on a commute, and other things that I will only put on a commute. So
yeah,
I think your playlist could just be called music to travel to. I kind of like the broadness of that. Do you have like the same approach or the same thoughts about your solo work as well as your work in your duo called Billy Dukes?
Yes. Billy Dukes, I guess, is still an extension of me. But I think when someone else is added to it, so when G3 did, when we started Billy Dukes, I had a sound in mind for him. So, but at the same time, I also want to then put across my sound. But then I realized that it's going to be my sound anyway, because I'm making it. So it's always going to be an extension of me. So the approach is still kind of the same. No, the approach is different, but the foundation is the same, excuse me. Because I'm always making it. So, yeah.
What's the difference in approach? Do you kind of, I don't know, do you start different? Do you have rituals to when you're making music together? Is it?
Yeah, we have a ritual. We just have a laugh for the first hour and a half to 2 hours. We catch up. We watch loads of videos of just ridiculous stuff on YouTube, and then we just get into music. It can always change. Sometimes he'd be like, "Oh, I heard this song the other day. This is amazing. What do you think of this?" Okay, cool. I think we can find inspiration from this. Or he might give me a direct song and be like, "Okay, cool. We should sample this." I'm like, "Okay, cool." Or it might be a voice note that I had and I was just humming something and I'm like, okay, cool. What do you think we could do with this? Or it changes. It always like, it varies. So it's just really fun to be able to kind of, it's a blessing actually. When I think about it now, it's a real blessing that I'm able to kind of just start from wherever I want, or wherever, you know, and just find myself having an end product, but also being able to persevere, because I know it can be really tough trying to make a song and you're not getting anywhere with this song and you just got to keep pushing. I feel like you got to keep pushing. Some people have to take a break and I understand that, but I feel like I need to push through it to then really, to get to the other side of it and just enjoy it.
Kind of like the idea of like the runner's block or the writer's block. You kind of have to like get through that wall to continue.
Yeah. I don't know if I really believe in writer's block or runner's block.
That's interesting.
Ooh.
That's really interesting, because I speak to loads of people who would be like, right, this idea is kind of going nowhere. I'm either going to drop it or come back to it, like you said, with a fresh mind.
Yeah.
But I haven't spoken to many people who don't believe in writer's block. That's really interesting. So are you always feeling pretty inspired?
Yeah, most of the time. I mean, so I don't know, maybe it's because I don't see as taking a break sometimes as a block. So sometimes I'll only do like a 16 bar of something, so no more than 30 seconds of a song. But I'm like, okay, cool, I've put that down. I'll visit that later. I don't see it as a block. It's just like, probably now's not the time. There's so many other songs that I've released and that just I needed time away from them. I don't see it as a block. I just see it as a little break. I don't know. Maybe that's what makes it easier for me to deal with it. Because maybe if I called it a block, I'd probably be like, there's a negative connotation to the block.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to say, try and take some of that away and like make some beats.
Yeah, you definitely should. I think a lot of people have been feeling that in lockdown as well at the moment. People we've spoken to been like, you know, I just haven't been in the creative mindset. Do you feel like you've been in creative mindset, Josh? Or you feel like your inspiration is like always strong?
Yeah, do you know what? I want to say a massive shout out to my friends. So basically we dropped a project recently actually. It's called the Lucy's Project Volumes 1 and 2. So a group of my friends, my creative friends, we just like we created a group chat and an artist called Lexa Moore. She's incredible, an incredible writer, incredible artist. She had an idea that the community just needs to come together and just make a project, whether it be instrumentals that you've had for the longest of time, or you know, whether you just want to make something new. Like, let's create a group, get everyone in it, and we just started making it. It just kept us really active and really busy, which was really cool.
Amazing.
Really, really cool.
That's amazing.
So yeah, and it was just the power of community as well. People coming together in a very, very crazy time to just make sure we try and stay creative. And that and choppy chops as well. I've been doing that as well on my Instagram. So
yeah, I've been loving them.
I asked people to send me thanks. I've been asking people to send me samples. I've had some very interesting ones, like someone sent me the alarm clock for Apple, one of the Apple alarm clocks.
No, don't.
yeah.
And don't you work for Apple? You work for Apple as well, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That was interesting, but it's good fun. It is really good fun. So that's been keeping me active. So I've stopped that for a little while. I mean, I did the last one today for like season 1, if you will, and then I'm probably gonna start it again later on. But that's been pretty cool.
Have you ever made anything, Josh, that you were like, I'm doing all of this right, it's all going well, but it just didn't turn out the way that you wanted it to be, but it still worked?
If that's ever happened, then you haven't heard it. So, but there are one or two, that I've just I've said, I'm enjoying. This is great. I think it's always like when I'm working really late though. It's when I'm working late. So like maybe it's like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I'm working. I'm trying to get through this song. I'm like, this is a vibe. This is great. I'm enjoying it. Sleep on it. Fresh ears. The next morning, I'm like, what the heck is this? What is this? Who made this? It's like someone came into my room and literally like just kicked down my door and just decided to just make whatever they could.
Yeah, just like, I'm making beats. I don't care.
Yeah. So there have been some misses like making music, but I guess it's all part of the process. Some I've enjoyed. What I've learned to do now is that if a beat can sometimes be a miss, I'll try and find the elements that I like and then try and put them into another song. So maybe if it's a chord progression I like, then I'll try and put it into another song, or even better, I just sample the whole thing again.
So how do you know when something is good, and how do you know when something is finished? That age-old question.
Yeah, so some songs, I mean, I've learned over time that I just need to kind of put a lid on certain things. Because if I have my own way, I'll add and add and add. So over the years, my songs used to be about over 50 elements of 50 sounds in one thing. And it just didn't need it sometimes. And then I'd start one of my friends who's an engineer, he would go through my stuff and like, okay, cool, you don't need that sound. I'm like, well, no, I believe I do. I need it. This is what makes the song. And he was like, no, not really. He'd mute it and be like, how do you feel? I'm like, yeah, the essence is still there. He was like, okay, cool. So you didn't need it, really and truly. So I think the walls are being broken down with cultures and genre worlds, because back in the day, if you were, let's say, into punk, there was a particular uniform that you'd wear to be into punk. If you were mod, you'd have a particular uniform. So, and over time now, like, you go to places, you see the demographic of people, you see the fashion, what people are wearing, and it's all very different, because now, like, people have realized that you don't have to have a real uniform to enjoy a genre now, or genres are becoming a lot more vast. They're so vast now that like you might be into the subgenre of that world, but might not have a uniform for it, or like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's all one.
You
big
just need a
mishmash.
form of transport.
Yeah.
Yeah, no uniform.
No uniform.
just wheels.
Do you listen to similar music that you make, or do you listen to something completely different?
Oh, it always be completely different. Depends. I swear, it depends on who I'm with as well. So there's certain people I know that have like, I don't know. It's gonna sound weird. I see music as like Facebook. So there's certain genres or certain bits of music that I know that someone else is gonna enjoy, because that could be, I would say, our mutual friend, innit? That would be right. So we're always gonna have. So we'll always chat about. We will always have this mutual friend between us, but somebody else in our group might not know that mutual friend, if that makes sense. The other person might not know that, or might not be that acquainted with that person, so may not add to that person or listen to that genre of music.
It's incredible. I love it.
So
I've never thought about it.
I know, but that's the way I see it.
I get you. I mean, I don't see it specifically in a Facebook way, but I do get the kind of overlap idea.
Right.
My mind is blown. I'm like, oh my God. Sorry, I'm like, got my hands over my eyes, and I've just like never thought about that.
I'm interested to know what the most obscure mutual friend is. Like, who's that one? It's like people you may know sort of category.
Okay,
or someone
cool.
you've been poked by 10 years ago.
Let's have a look, because I've got one that's really, really, really out there. Yeah, I really like Code Orange. It's very heavy, very, very heavy.
What kind of music is it?
Definitely metal.
You did say that you looked into metal a little bit after your rap phase.
I think one of the first metal, I guess, bands I was introduced to was System of a Down.
Oh my God, yes. Is it Chop Suey?
Yes, it was Chop Suey indeed.
That is such a banger. Oh
my
God.
So that was like one of the first things in college. I was like, wow. It was just amazing to me, because I could understand the correlation between gospel and metal, and that was discipline and never having the same kind of time signatures and sounds for that long. So in gospel, you never know where the song's going to go from time to time. It could go anywhere. You never know if there's going to be a key change. You never know if there's going to be a time signature change. And that was the same thing in metal. And there's discipline. It's so tight. It's so clean. It's so precise. And I could understand that. And I was like, yo, like, I need this. I need more of this in my life. Like, and yeah.
That makes sense now when I think of classical musicians talking about how similar metal and classical is, because classical sort of, well, obviously, like when you say classical, it's the same as sort of saying having that complication around genre, because you've got all sorts of different classical, but the sort of prevailing time signatures and everything like that is completely. I remember one of my ex-boyfriends, actually, he was really into his heavy metal and his dad was a classical musician, and they were having this debate. And I remember at the time thinking, what? and then the more you kind of learn and you see it that way, you think, okay, yeah. And like you just said with gospel, and like everything kind of fits into one in that way, doesn't it? So do you think you've got any kind of metal influences in your stuff? Because I can't hear it immediately, but do you think of it in that way? Maybe you don't think of it when you're actually making it. It's probably just subconscious, right? Like,
yeah. Do you know what? I think one thing that I definitely have taken from metal is that cutout of like when the beat cut, when the drummer stops,
the textural
and
stuff.
Everyone runs the same line.
Yeah.
Everyone runs the same line. That is one thing I do in quite a few of my songs. Oh yeah, and the -5 semitone thing on your guitar.
What?
That's one thing I like doing.
What was that? Sorry.
On your melody. So like, for example, let's say you've got a melody line, the -5 semitone thing is always a good, like, you always find a harmony in there. Like a lot of guitarists will do that. So your first guitarist will play the line. The person playing the same line is always -5 semitones under. So like when you have a harmony in a solo, it tends to be either -5, or depending on the scale, it might be -4. But yeah, semitones.
I love this. This is all like totally blow my mind.
Before, when we were doing a little sound check, I was saying to Hattie, "Oh, how shall I address him? Shall I say Josh or Intalekt?" And then it made me think, where did you get your name from, and how difficult was it to sort of come up with? Because I know it's such a difficult thing for artists to come up with a name. It's a big deal, isn't it? And do you feel like you were saying that you stick with ideas? Is this something that you were like, yeah, I'm going to stick with this, or is it something you expect to sort of fluctuate and change?
Yeah, there was a day where I think
right, okay,
I don't know, something had happened, and like someone was really upset, and I just kind of I'm always that person that kind of gives that little word of like, oh, here you go, da da da, like I feel like this and maybe you should do that might help, kind of thing. I was that guy, and people are like, oh yeah man, oh bro, you're so intellectual, man. And then I was like, oh cool, I'm just gonna run with that. But and I spelt it Intalekt, and it's just so funny. But it's very funny now because it's like I realized that I didn't know much back then anyway, and I still never do because I'm forever learning.
That's brilliant.
So it's just like that's the cool irony in the name itself as well. Just like,
oh, that's so, I love that. So, it goes back to that though. It's like I find with any kind of craft, the more you get into it and the more you learn, the less you realize you know, right?
100%.
And is that something 100%. That you found? Like, how do you keep learning and keep listening?
Yeah, the best thing I've learned over the years is unlearning. Unlearning is learning.
Wow. Wait. Explain to me.
Oh, unlearning. Basically, like, there's so many things that I guess we're kind of born into, and we kind of just been told that this is the norm, innit? This is just life in general. And as you ask questions, as you grow up, you realize that certain things just aren't right. So you have to unlearn them to really then learn a new process. Right. So unlearning is learning.
I was going to say, do you think that that's like your biggest learning curve?
100%. 100%. It's the toughest, but yeah, it's helped me grow a lot.
Is there like a particular example of that you have in your head? And that, I mean, like personally or musically, or like you were talking about your mates, anything really?
I think society, I think how I've looked at myself, I've kind of used society as a yardstick to then dictate how I should be or how I should, do you know what I mean? So there was a time in my life that was like, it'd be like, oh, you talk white, for example, or what does that mean? Don't know, still don't know. Or so yeah, too black for the white kids, too white for the black kids. Never understood that statement. But you kind of sit with those things. You're like, okay, raw, like, who am I? Like, what is? And then yeah. So I think that was the biggest thing. Unlearning that I'm just me, and I'm just a melting pot of so many cultures and things that I've seen and taken in over my life, and I just yeah, man. So that's the main one. I think it's just my life in general, just unlearning certain things.
You were talking about your sort of gospel background and living with your parents and things like that, and I'm wondering how much, because now when people grow up, their upbringing is a kind of mixture of their environment and also their like parental and educational upbringing. And how much do you think art for you and music for you has really helped you to shape who you are compared to your family upbringing? I guess that's quite a big question, and I don't know if there's like a set answer to it, but the way you're speaking sounds like it's something that you've really figured out through trial and error. And I feel like very similar to you, and I feel similar to you because of music, if that makes sense, and because of being so open about genre and being an educator as well. And I wonder how much of it is that, or if it's your parents, or I'd love to hear actually.
I don't know why this has come to mind. It's almost like a house, the way I think about it. So I guess my parents are the foundation, right? So they've set the ground. Then me as a person, I've gone out to find the bricks, and I guess music is just a furnishing on the inside of the house. That's how I would see it. So like maybe one day the interior is all the same, like it's all the same kind of like motif or like whatever you want to call it, like the same kind of vibe. Or sometimes it's maybe like a mixture of everything, things from the past, things from the future, but my foundation always stays the same. My parents they put that there, and it's not going anywhere. Do you know what I mean? And it's a pretty strong foundation, so it won't move. So that's the way I see it.
That's lovely. I love it.
That's
really
beautiful, beautiful imagery.
Yeah.
Are your family musical as well?
So my mum, she sings. So she sings in church, and she also played the saxophone a while ago. Yeah, she stopped playing that. Yeah, she used to play sax. And my dad, back in the day when he was a young boy in Nigeria, he used to play drums. So yeah, but they love music. They all love music.
Did they ever come and watch you?
Yeah, they do. They came to like my first headline. They've come to shows and stuff. Like they're a big inspiration, man. We can joke about it now, but like I remember my mum and dad were telling me like when the first time I told them that I wanted to do music, like they had the biggest poker face on. They were like, oh, that's nice. So, but they're probably like my number one fans. Yeah.
Do you have siblings who at all?
Yeah, so I have my younger sister and then two younger brothers as well. So the youngest, who is now 12, he's going to be 13. He's into music now. He's into production. So
your parents okay with that?
Or are they like, what have you started, John?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's kind of going all right for me. So I don't know, maybe they might just, they're letting it go. They're letting it go. And plus he's the baby in it. So they're just like, yeah.
you said working as an educator really enriches your creativity as a musician and everything. But also I'm thinking about spaces as well, and how important it is, as you must know, to create safe spaces, and how that influences your performance spaces as well, for either young people you're working with, but also for yourself. Have you got any kind of, has that changed for you, I guess? And have you had any sort of favorite spaces that you've performed in?
With me, I think with the production, I think it's the same with performing. So with production, I'm kind of in my own, I'm in my head, I'm in my own mind, and I'm creating this space anyway. Like, it's weird. I'm in a space, but I'm creating my own thing inside it, if that makes sense. Like, I'm just, so when people say zone out, like, I'm literally zoning out and just making my own. So when I'm making music, I want you to go to that space. I want you to then travel with me to that space. It might not look exactly the same, but I want to evoke something from you to go somewhere, at least. Do you know what I mean? So there's that. And I think with the same with performing as well, like, I always tried to make sure I do like a piece where there'll be no instruments. It's just like an a cappella kind of thing. And I want people to kind of just take it all in and just kind of go there with me as well. So yeah, sometimes it's just you just kind of bring out a physical version of that space that you want people to go in, and that's with your mannerisms, the way you say certain things, the way you, and I've learned that through a lot of artists that I really respect in the music scene. There's a guy called Afronaut Zoo.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Honestly,
yes. Oh my gosh, his
Hattie Yusi, yeah,
he's so good, phenomenal.
That's one of my biggest inspirations, performance wise, like just how you're able to just take people with you, evoke emotion, and just so I think it's just in my mind, I'm trying to just physically bring that out and just get that out to people, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Do you have a preference over performing to production? Do you prefer one to the other, or is it just?
I love them both. I think that I love them both for different reasons. Production is, again, like the journey of like discovery, like just trying to figure out what I could do, like putting this together. How's that going to work? Is that going to work? No. Okay, cool. Let's try something else. So there's that discovery and then the final product. But then with performance, being able to then bring a whole new element of that song is amazing. And it always changes because it depends on like the lighting, who's there, the sound on that day. Like, it always changes, but I just know that I'm always going to give like everything, or always trying to give my, give 100% of me, and trying to give my thoughts out through that performance. So that never changes, but yeah, you never know. Yeah.
So you can find out more about Josh by following him on Instagram at Intalekt Music, and also you can follow School of Bop, which is at School of Bop _, and also you can check out Billy Jukes, that's at Billy Jukes _
All the notes and links and everything you need in the show notes. Please do give us a 5-star review. Even leave a couple of words if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. And yeah, just share it amongst your friends.
Let everyone know about it. It's really, really cool. And we can share the love.
Indeed. Share the love.
Share the love. Josh, thank you so much for coming to speak to us. It was really, really lovely, even though I haven't met Hattie has. But I will certainly be meeting up in person.
Yes.
Yeah. We might be best friends.
We're going to arrange a night. We're going to arrange a party. Don't worry.
We hope you've enjoyed the episode and want to keep us on repeat.
You can follow, subscribe, and like us on your podcast platform of choice and slide into our DMs on Instagram by following us at On Repeat the Podcast. All information will be included in the show notes.
On Repeat was made, produced, and edited by us, and the theme music is an original piece by Ellie's jazz band, Fujiyama, and wonderfully resampled by Dee, the producer for the podcast. All of our guests give us permission to use their music. Thanks again for listening, and don't forget to keep it on repeat.